Ted Cruz, who is declared the winner in the Texas Senate race, projected winner. He is now appearing with his supporters and about to speak.
God bless Texas! Tonight is a victory for the people of Texas. Tonight is a victory for all the men and women in this room and all the men and women across this state that poured your hearts, your passion, your time, your energy to rising to defend Texas. To every one of you, Heidi and I and the girls, we say thank you. Thank you. Texas saw something this year that we've never seen before. This election wasn't about me, and it wasn't about Beto O'Rourke. This election was a battle of ideas. It was a contest for who we are and what we believe. It was a contest, and the people of Texas decided this race. We traveled every part of the state, from East Texas to West Texas, from the Panhandle to the Valley. And the energy, the excitement we saw was incredible. Just a couple of weeks ago down in the Valley, in Harlingen, 2,000 people coming out. In Mission, 2,000 people coming out. In El Paso, 2,000 people coming out. And what was truly amazing, at many of these events, we would ask, how many of you here are former Democrats? And we would see hands throughout the room, as we're seeing hands now, because Texas came together behind a common sense agenda of low taxes, low regulations, and lots of jobs. Securing the border and keeping our communities safe. And defending the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And that is a common sense agenda that unites Texans from every part of the state. It was your hard work. This is a victory for the single mom who's been waiting tables, who suddenly sees her wages going up because the economy is booming. This is a victory for the oil field worker who sees now that the United States is the world's top producer of oil. This is a victory for all the kids who are seeing their parents. In the last 2 years, 4 million people have come off of food stamps. Stop and reflect for a moment the lives transformed. People who had been dependent on government for basic food needs now have jobs and get to come home carrying a bag of groceries. Get to come home and look at their kids and say, I'm providing for my family, and their kids get to look up at mom, look up at dad, and see the hope. This was an election about hope and about the future, and the people of Texas rendered a verdict that we want a future with more jobs and more security and more freedom.
He is a one relief man. It was a very, very close race. He fought back a very energetic and well-funded challenger in Beto O'Rourke. Ted Cruz basking in the moment of victory again after a long night in which those numbers at some points were not looking great. Along the way in his campaign, he found a friend in Donald Trump. They seem to have patched over whatever differences they had.
He has a new nickname. The president says he's beautiful Ted. And there he is giving the shout out to his wife, Heidi Cruz. Gabe Gutierrez is right there at Cruz headquarters. And were they biting their nails, Gabe, through the night? Or did they feel that Red Texas would come on home?
Hi there, Sam. Well, the atmosphere is obviously electric here, as you can see behind me. Now, Republicans, some of them were surprised that this race was called so early, but many of them say that this proves what they had said all along. They just didn't think this blue wave was real. They thought that there just wouldn't be enough turnout in some of those southern counties that Beto O'Rourke was counting on, and that Ted Cruz ultimately pulled it out in the end. This is, of course, a deeply red state. Now, Ted Cruz, just a few moments ago, framing this as a battle of ideas. I just spoke with his campaign a short time ago, and they said that they wouldn't say, that they didn't want to say how much President Trump's support, how much that actually contributed to his success here. They say that Ted Cruz has been talking about the strong economy, that tax cuts, that ultimately that is what matters to conservative voters here in Texas, and that is why they turned out in large numbers for Ted Cruz. However, still a very close race in such a deep red state. Democrats are encouraged by how much Beto O'Rourke, how much enthusiasm he was able to pull out. But ultimately, with President Trump focusing on immigration in the last few weeks of this campaign, immigration and border security, such a huge issue here in Texas, with thousands of troops potentially being deployed to the southern border to protect, to help secure the southern border, in President Trump's words. But again, Ted Cruz found a friend in President Trump during this campaign, a strange coalition considering the harsh rhetoric during the heated 2016 campaign, where Ted Cruz referred to President Trump as a narcissist and a pathological liar. But he was happy to count on his support during this campaign, and ultimately he pulled out a victory here in deep red Texas.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.